It's said that people who write down their goals are 42% more likely to accomplish them. Now, 42% is almost half. That's a big percentage. In the first unit for section 3, we looked at managing your project and all the different things that go into properly planning for completing your goal. But one of the biggest aspects of doing that is how you manage your time. That's in today's unit for section 3. Hi everyone, welcome to Unit 2 of Section 3. I'm Christopher Epling, your course instructor. The first two sections of the Graphic Arts course is laying the foundation, coming up with your idea, your concept, what it is you want to create and hope to create. It also requires you to think about the tools you're going to be needed to create whatever it is in mind that you have, or on top of that, what types of materials you also need. The third section in this course, the first part of it anyway, is really focusing in on what's your plan of action to successfully accomplish this. Now the first unit, Unit 1 of Section 3, we looked at my own background for my work, the different projects I have going on, how I organize my projects, and the kind of the workflow of what happens when I take on a different job. Now you, as a student in this graphic arts course, can think of this almost like, well, this is your job, your first job, to create this art piece, whether it's sequential art or standalone. And you've decided all these things already, so you should have all the tools that you need in mind, plus your concept. So for this unit, Unit 2 of Section 3, we're going to be looking at time management. Now, if you paid close attention in the first unit video of this section, you noticed that in the background glimpse of my workshop, there were a lot of different planning mechanisms. There were dry erase boards, there were folders, notebooks, calendars. All these things come into play, especially whenever you're having to juggle multiple projects at once. Now, you, the student in this course, aren't juggling multiple projects in terms of different graphic art requirements, but you are juggling school, and that can be an entire job of its own. It's almost maybe working two jobs. You have your requirements from your course load, then you have this graphic arts course you're taking, and then all the different responsibilities, maybe extracurricular things that you're doing. There's a lot going on. So in this particular video, we're going to break down one aspect of project planning, and that's time management. It's a huge portion of what it is you're going to have to do in order to successfully complete this course. Now the first two sections is laying the foundations. The videos were longer. In these last two sections, we're going to go by a little faster. The first two of Section 3, this unit and the last unit, is focusing in on project planning and time management. The last two will be going into penciling and laying the foundation for your art. But you should go ahead and start with your artwork. You should have all the tools you have in mind, from your storyboard to your concept to medium, all these things. So begin work now. This is the time to start. Now, there's a lot of questions coming in about when we will be talking about application. Application is in the last section, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't start already. Application is more of just maybe it's evolving around hints and tips and different things to make working with any specific medium a little bit faster, a little bit easier to use. So go ahead and get started if you haven't already. So let's begin today on time management, and get a pencil and paper out. I want you to take notes as you go throughout this unit. Write down the different things that you hear that might help you. And then afterwards, reflect back on this and ask yourself, what can I do to successfully plan my time in order to successfully complete this course? So let's go ahead and get started with today's unit. Time management. I mean, just saying that alone, it sounds so boring, I know, but it's so important. I've learned that the hard way. Juggling multiple projects at once, trying to figure out how am I going to complete this on a deadline. I've come up with a few things that actually help me, and some are pretty obvious, things that you would normally think of as helping you organize your time, but there's other things I want to talk to you about during this unit that may be a little less obvious, things that maybe are a little inconspicuous and you don't think of right off the top of your head when it comes to how can I successfully plan my time to complete and reach a goal. And your goal for this course is to create a piece of artwork, either sequential art or standalone piece. So we know that in mind. Now we've already talked about everything we need in order to successfully complete your project. From your concept to your story to laying out a storyboard for that, or a layout, a mock-up piece, planning composition. Then we've also talked about the medium. What are you going to use to put that medium on? All these questions have been answered in the first two sections. So in this unit of section 3, we're going to be focusing on time management. How can you successfully use your time now to reach the goal? So I want to start off by talking about a couple things that, this may be a little obvious to you, but if this looks like anyone's desktop, then don't feel bad. Now this isn't a screenshot of my desktop, but mine's a little less cluttered, but still, it's pretty bad. If your desktop looks like this, then, like I said, you're not alone, but you can see how this could really, really impact maybe organization. So the first step in this, I think, is really taking all the different elements of your project and organizing those neatly. You want to be able to clearly see what it is that you are expected to do, your goal, what's expected of you for the course, and then lay out a game plan on how you're going to reach that goal. Now, one of the oldest and most resourceful, probably old school ways nowadays anyway, is the good old paper calendar. Seeing the months ahead help a lot. So, for instance, with this particular course, if your instructors required you to complete this in, say, 3 months, then you should have it already laid out on paper when it is that your deadline, your final piece is expected of you. So that's the first step, knowing the deadline. When should you be finished by? Can you answer that for this course? If so, jot that down, get a calendar out, and see where you are and where you need to be. That time in between is going to help a lot. Now, a lot of us nowadays, instead of using the good old-fashioned paper time management resource, we go ahead and resource straight back to the computer. Computer offers a lot of different ways to organize your time. You can add reminders. You can structure different types of events and reminders for a certain type of organization. So you could put into a computing program, let's say, art course, graphic arts course, extracurricular activities, band, sports, homework, leisure time, travel. All these things can be added into your different type of desktop calendar. Desktop calendars are wonderful. I use them constantly for my work. Now, sometimes I'll even add too much. As you can see here, this isn't my particular calendar, but this is an example that I pulled offline so you could see how these can actually become cluttered, even digitally. So when you're laying out your game plan for this course, what it is, like I said, between now and your deadline, it might be a good idea to actually create a whole calendar on its own. Now, all of us are so accustomed nowadays to going back and forth from our smartphone to our tablet to our computer. Everything is synced, linked up together. So setting reminders on when you should be doing something and how often is pretty easy to do. My suggestion would be to go ahead and start doing that now if you haven't already. For instance, by the end of this week, let's say, whatever week this falls in for this unit that you're watching this, let's say at the end of this week I'd like to start putting pencil down on canvas, my underdrawing. If I'm working on a painting, then I want to go ahead and sketch out the composition on my canvas. That's my goal for this week. The next week, I want to go ahead and start laying the undertone of paint, my first layer. I want to have that successfully completed and ready to launch out into full-blown painting by the following week after that. Now you also have to take into account once you finish a piece, let's say a standalone piece, you have to leave time in there for your project to not only dry, but to prepare it for moving it from wherever it is going to be displayed. These are all things you have to think about. Seems like a lot, I know, but it's not. If you just write everything out and see where you are and where you need to be. Dry erase boards, if you noticed in the Unit 1 of Section 3, in the video showing my process for a project, are vital to me anyway. I pulled this image offline to show what a typical dry erase marker and board would look like. Now the great thing about using a dry erase board is that it's constantly visible. You can change it, you can work it out so that maybe you're doing something by blocks of the day or by weeks of a month or months in a year. All these things can be easily organized and easily cleaned off to redo. Think back again to what I showed you in the Unit 1 of Section 3. When I lay out projects, I have to have everything in mind on where I am and where I need to go. Now, how far in between those two things are can give me an idea on how much time I need to be giving to any given project. If a project's falling behind in comparison to another project, I'll give that project special attention until it's caught up again. Now, for your goal for this particular project is to complete your piece, your standalone piece, or your sequential art piece by a given date. Let's say, and in the time of this course, this is true, that you're required to finish by the end of March, the 1st of April of 2018. Let's say the current month we're in, and this is also true, is January. Actually, we're almost in the middle of January. So you have approximately 2 months to complete your project. This is not too much of a range of time to work in, but also it's absolutely all the time you need. If you use your time wisely and you construct your time very, very carefully, you'll be able to succeed in your goal. The last thing that you want to happen is to be rushing at the end, trying to get everything together before it's too late for your deadline. Now here's a little bit of a percentage standardized quote that I pulled offline concerning accomplishing goals. You're 42% more likely to accomplish your goals if you first write them down on paper. Now that doesn't sound like it's too much of a revelation. If you write something down, you're more likely to remember to do it. If you write something down, you see it every day, you're reminded of it. It doesn't fall to the wayside, whether you write it on a paper calendar, type it out on a calendar, or put it on a dry erase marker board. You see what it is expected of you. You think about it. You're always applying that algorithm between where you are and where you need to be. So applying that, you can see how much work you have to do. But if you think of 42%, that may not at first glance seem like much, but it's almost half. It's 8% points away from being half. You're almost half more likely to finish something if you write it down first. So if you're taking notes right now in your classroom or at home, this is a big one. Write down your goal and the deadline. Put that visible so you can see it. Look at it all the time. See it every day. Remind yourself, I have to finish this, and it needs to be finished by whatever date you set, or whatever date is requested of you. Now, there's a few key questions that we have to think about when it comes to establishing your goals and achieving your goals. The first is the challenge. Why do I want it? Define the desire or challenge facing you. Now, for this graphic arts course, you may have been asked to do this, required to do this, or maybe you joined. Whatever it may be, you have found yourself entered into this requirement. So why do you want it? Well, this is a way and a chance, as we said in the first section, for you to say something, to have your voice heard. People will be seeing your artwork. Your artwork will be displayed. People will be asking questions. Why did this artist create this? What did the artist want to say? The narrative behind it. We've been constantly going over and over in this course. The narrative. What could the story be? That is something that you have to ask yourself. Why do you want people to see your art? What do you want to say? Now, the second key question is your goal. What do you want? Write down the goal you want to achieve. Again, writing it down, seeing it. What do you want to complete? What do you want? You want to have a standalone piece finished by the end of this course. You want others to be able to see all the work that you put into it, from your concept to drawing out for your storyboard, to applying the medium, to preparing the medium for drying or however you want to preserve it, and then also displaying it. This should be what you want. You're in the course. This is what the course requires from you. Number 3, action steps. How will I get it? Your specific action plan to reach your goal. Now this is where all this planning comes into play, of writing down what you need to do. Where are you right now currently with this course? Now, I can tell you where you should be. Where you should be is you should be already going down and laying the undertone for your drawing. You should already have an idea for your concept. Your storyboard should be finished, or your undertone or your mock-up piece. Then you should already have known exactly what it is you want to do, what medium you're going to use, what type of surface you're going to apply the medium towards, and now you're starting to work on that to achieve that goal. That is where you should be. Now where you want to get is to the point where you're finished. So how will you get there? That's really where the planning comes in from here on in. And the 4th is target dates. When do I want it? Now this is big. This course is designed for instructors to use it and implement it into the classroom at any given time. The first 2 sections are longer with longer videos. The last 2 sections are shorter with shorter videos, and everything's more compacted. So therefore, just by default, the first 2 sections will take longer than the last 2. There should be a date given to the students, letting them know exactly when their artwork is required from them. Now, let's say again, and we'll use the dates it's already given for the first workshop being implemented. April of 2018 is when your artwork is required from you. How will you get there? What is today? Ask yourself and then apply that. Where are you with your project? And then how far do you have left to go? If I were to break down the planning process in your mind, the question I just asked you, where you were and where you want to go, it would look something like this. Now, of course, there's no way to see into the human mind to see the planning process that goes into all your neurons firing off, and memory to planning to the future, the past, the present, all these things come into play. But we can almost assume that something of the sorts is being laid out and structured similar to this. You have exactly all these branches piecing off from your goal. All these branches are different things that have to come together in order for you to successfully complete your goal. Some you've already completed, like we talked about earlier. Your concept, your storyboard, your mock-up, whatever that is. You should have that in mind and ready to go. You should already selected your medium. So from there, what do we have left to do? Applying all those things together then and creating your final piece, whether it's sequential art or standalone. How do we get to where you need to be from where you are? That's where writing down your goals comes into play. Another great helpful tip is working together. Now, you're in a classroom with other students. Let's say this course has been implemented into a classroom where you're in an art class, so everyone is asked to do this together. Or you've been selected from your peers, from your instructor, your teacher in your classroom. You have stood out, and your instructor, your teacher has said, well, this student would, they feel, be a great contribution to this. They would enjoy this. They would have something to say. Whatever the reason is, you're together in a group. Working together as a group is very helpful in achieving goals. Either that's an individual goal or a group goal. Now in this course, you're required, everyone individually, to create your own piece of art. But when you look over and you see the student next to you a little further along than you, then you can say to yourself, well, maybe I need to be working a little harder. Maybe I need to get this done a little faster. Writing down your goals helps. You'll know exactly what's expected of you. You'll see what's doable, what's simple, what's going to be hard. Whatever's more difficult should require more time. Remember those sketchbooks I asked you to keep early on in this project? Those are something that you'll keep throughout this entire process. Those sketchbooks can also be very helpful in writing down your goals, writing down what's left, remaining of your project to do. It's not just for character design or, let's say, drawing out the anatomy or a certain setting or composition. Notes can be taken saying, well, I'm going to use acrylic and I need X amount of time for this acrylic to be applied and X amount of time for this acrylic to dry. Now, this is kind of a general quote. It's funny when you read it. It's almost like, duh, right? Captain Obvious. Stay focused, ignore the distractions, and you'll accomplish your goals much faster. Well said, Joel Osteen. I agree 100%, but that's a little more easier said than done. You have a lot of distractions. All around you constantly are distractions. At school, at home, in your mind, made up, real, tons of things going on. I understand that. Your instructor understands that. We all have these things. But to have that clear path from where you are and where you need to be requires planning and time management. There's a lot going on in your mind, I know. It's a huge part of growing up, but if you keep in mind what it is you need to accomplish and when in that deadline, don't look at it as something looming over the back of your shoulder. Just work small pieces, and eventually, little tiny things that you put together and work on will eventually add up. Managing your time means that you have to have a plan. You have to use your time effectively. Remember when I asked you to write some stuff down at the beginning of this? Well, here's another one. There's distractions, and there's things that are important that you have to do, such as, let's say, social studies, but there's also things that you can choose to do, such as video games. So within the duration of this course, from now until the deadline, maybe some of these things that are less important can actually wait a while before you participate with them. I want to leave you with thinking about this. It's the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo. There's a lot of work here. Now, of course, we're talking about one of the most masterful and most technical and talented artists of all time, but that's a lot of canvas to paint over. A lot of area and a lot of paint. Think of one little small section of this as being what we're asking you to do in your graphic arts course. Whether it's a sequential art piece or a standalone piece, the narrative you want to say is a small, tiny little corner of this giant chapel. How long did it take Michelangelo to complete this? 4 years. 4 years of his life. That's a long time, but look at the work. So I want you to think about this in terms of where you are. So draw it out. Here's where I am. Okay. Here's where I need to go. So what all falls underneath there? All these little points underneath are things that you need to be working on, and then you label those, and then you start checking them off. All these little things add up. You can work out and plan your time effectively, but you have to know what it is you need to be doing. And that's obvious to you when you ask yourself where you are and where you want to be. Alright, so time management. It's not the most maybe glamorous aspect of graphic arts or planning projects, but it's so important. If you don't have an idea on how you're going to go about completing something, then it can last forever, it can never get done, and that's something we do not want to happen with this course. So I hope you enjoyed today's unit. Time management is very important. And we're going to be moving on from here now, going into laying the foundation with pencil on whatever type of canvas, paper, or medium that you're using to complete your piece. So thanks again for participating. I'm Christopher Epling. Until next time, keep drawing.